for a GMAT Club live event. I'm Jeremy Scheinwald. I'm the founder and president of mbaMission. And let's see, I've been at this now for 13 years straight. And before that, there were a couple of years where I was learning that this was a business. I've seen all sorts of applicants, the most unusual applicants, and some who seem at first glance maybe to be typical, but I think that we work hard to differentiate anyone so they don't fall into an overrepresented pool. Easier said than done at times. You know, you can only work with what you have, but we work quite hard to help people send a message that they're their own unique applicant. So I'm guessing that many of you are. Oh boy, I'm guessing that many of you are here because you feel like you fall into that pool. So let's get started, and let's try to help you find your way. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. I just realized that one app wasn't shut down, so I hope that's not going to be a problem. And give me 1 second. Here we go. Start a slideshow. Slideshow, play from the start. Okay, great. So I'm going to assume that everyone here is ready to go. I can't see the questions you're asking, so I guess I'll try to keep this to about half an hour, and we'll have lots of time for questions afterwards. I hope no one's typing anything that's urgent right now because I can't see it. Okay, so here we are. The overrepresented applicant, distinguishing yourself amid a crowded field. So we're going to talk about what overrepresentation is. We'll talk about what we feel its antidote is, and we'll talk about how to execute on everything, how execution is everything, and how to execute on the little things which are especially important when you are an overrepresented applicant. Talk very, very briefly about who we are, and then we'll do Q&A. Okay, so overrepresentation and its antidote. Let's start with an obvious question. Who is overrepresented in the applicant pool? So let's be honest, you know, people don't love stereotyping, you know, applicants or anyone for that sake. But I mean, there is a reality to the fact that there are a lot of male applicants in the pool who come from finance backgrounds. Just a reality. There are a lot of male management consultants. There are fewer women in finance, which makes them a less represented group. Probably more female consultants, but still male management consultants are probably more overrepresented. Indian software engineers and technology workers in general, and Far East Asian applicants, mainly Chinese and Korean applicants, although it depends from school to school on that one. Some get a lot of applicants, some don't from certain countries. So this is really who we're talking about. I'm sure that we can identify other groups. You know, it's a little bit subjective, but these are the pools that we generally feel are overrepresented. So your scores are important, but they're not everything. So we see it especially among the national categories that we just mentioned. Your Chinese applicants, your Indian applicants, where testing is super important getting into an undergrad, if not everything. To get into an IIT in India, you know, you need to be in the top 1% or even more. I think it's one of the most elite tests in the world, and so, you know, that's, you might be you might be accustomed to an environment in which, you know, everything is everything is test based. Well, that's not the case with an MBA program. Now, sure, tests, absolutely, the higher you are, the more it can help you. But just because you have a 770 or a 750 in our example, you're an investment banker with a 750, someone else there has a 710. Yeah, it's not game over. You know, it's not like you have 40 more points on someone, and, you know, okay, I'm in and he's not. You still have to reveal what you offer that someone does not. If you're a Deloitte consultant with a 670 GMAT, yes, it becomes challenging because there are many, many other Deloitte, Accenture, PwC, Bain, BCG, and McKinsey consultants out there with higher GMAT scores. So in an apples to apples comparison, you're starting behind, but maybe you offer something else that someone does not. We'll go into what something else is in a moment. If you're a tech consultant with Infosys, you have a 730 GMAT, someone out there has a 770. You've got to beat them on the rest of your application, not on your GMAT. So you can't rely on your GMAT, and you can't assume that just because you have a low GMAT score that you're done. The schools are going to accept some applicants with lower scores and reject some with higher scores. I'm not saying it's easy to get in with a 670 GMAT if you're a Deloitte consultant. The lower your score goes, the more and more and more you have to be ready to offer something special. And if you can't, then to be honest, your application is done. If you're the run-of-the-mill average consultant from Deloitte with a 670 GMAT, there are lots of others ahead of you. So let's look at those other dimensions beyond scores. First of all, when you're presenting yourself, don't run from who you are. This is one of my favorite quotes from any admissions quote. This is from, it's on the Stanford website. We usually attribute it to Derek Bolton, but they've stopped attributing to him on the website, so we won't either. Because we want to discover who you are, resist the urge to package yourself in order to come across in a way you think Stanford wants. Such attempts simply blur our understanding of who you are and what you can accomplish. So, you can't pretend that you're something else. If you're a consultant, you can't pretend that you're a professional mountain climber. You can't pretend that you're working in biotech research. You just have to present, when it comes to professional stories, the best consulting story you have. If you only have your work accomplishments, then it's going to be a real challenge for you. So you have to really think about being what we call a multidimensional applicant, having your work accomplishments, but also having community accomplishments, personal accomplishments, entrepreneurial accomplishments can be personal accomplishments. Personal accomplishments can be athletic accomplishments, musical, artistic. Community can be, beyond, outside of your work or even in your work. You're running a diversity group in your office. You're on the charitable board of your office. Your community work, you're doing something outside of your traditional workplace, community service, so to speak. And if you can paint a broad picture of who you are, showing that you achieve in a variety of different spheres, that is how you best overcome your differentiation. Let's talk about that, or your overrepresentation. So let's talk about this. So you have the Indian technologist. Hi, I'm an Indian technologist, versus the community building, talent developing, internally motivated Indian technologist. If one has points that are a little bit above the other, one has a 710, the first guy, and the other one has 700, which one of these guys are you going to accept? You're still going to accept the one who has the depth of experience, the multidimensional applicant. You're placing a bet as an admissions officer on someone's future. And so, you're going to say, okay, the individual who's achieving in a variety of spheres is a better bet, even if he is 10 points lower or 20 points lower in terms of the GMAT score. So, think about it. You got the Indian technologist. I work really hard. I'm given flagship projects, but that's all he can say, versus an individual who's saying, I'm co-developing a multi-faith speaker series at my temple. I'm a hands-on mentor at my firm, and I'm delivering results. So I've taken on mentorship assignments, and I'm mentoring people, and they are going somewhere at this firm. I'm good at developing talent. I've had photo shows at 4 cafes, right? I'm not talking about the MoMA here, but I'm out there, and I've got an artistic talent, and I pursue it to its fullest, and I'm out there pushing myself. And just like the other guy, I work really hard, and I'm given flagship projects. All things being equal, you're definitely taking the guy on the bottom, the person with many dimensions, and pardon me, especially if they're not equal, you are taking the person on the bottom. If the person on the bottom has better scores, better GMAT score, better GPA, you're definitely taking that person. So, so the antidote really is to be a multidimensional applicant. Now, again, that's easier said than done. Let's talk about this in a second. Who would you admit to your program here? Hi, I'm a finance guy, versus I'm an ethically conscious, diversity-oriented, personally committed, top-performing finance guy. Well, okay, you got one guy here who was highly ranked and promoted ahead of his peers. You have another person who developed a finance 101 curriculum so that a client could learn valuation and sell his firm at the right price. Also, this individual started and ran a diversity group at his firm. So he's ethically conscious and diversity oriented. I assisted my coach with rugby practice whenever possible, right? So finance can be all encompassing. You might not have the chance to do, a consistent volunteer experience, but this individual played sports in college, was working in the same city where he played sports, and called his rugby coach and said, hey, I want to volunteer at practice when I can, and went out there whenever he could. He committed to his team and was helping coach that team. Fantastic. And just like the other guy, I'm highly ranked and was promoted ahead of my peers. The person with multiple dimensions is the one who's going to win, even if his GMAT score is 10, 20, 30 points higher, lower. He is going to win, and he's going to win especially if his scores are similar or his scores are even higher. So easier said than done. The point for those of you who are several years from applying is really work to develop your profile. If you feel like, hey, professionally, I'm in one of those pools. I am a male technology consultant, or I am a male strategy consultant, or I'm a Chinese applicant, or I'm an Indian applicant, or I'm a finance guy. Really work to develop your profile now so that you can't be identified. You can't be stereotyped as one thing. You can't be stereotyped as a finance guy. Sure, part of that is study for your GMAT, study for your GRE, for sure. But also you want to, make sure that you have breadth to your candidacy, right? So you have, you're engaging in community activities, not in a way where it's cosmetic. You're actually meaningfully participating and committing to something it's important to you. You're having your impact. Take leadership roles at work, maybe not just advancing projects that are within your professional purview, but also, sort of community-oriented projects. My examples like diversity projects or mentorship, etc. Try to say, look, I'm not a one-dimensional person at work. Set and achieve your personal objectives. Whether it's you are helping an individual with a startup, or you plan to complete a Ironman triathlon, or whatever it is, you should go out there and do the things you're otherwise going to do, and make sure that you've got them done before you apply. Learn about your target programs. We'll talk about how important it is to be connected to your programs. Learn about your goals, plausible, realistic goals for you, but that are still ambitious. Really make sure that you can connect your goals to that target program. These are the steps that you can take well before you apply. They can't happen if you're applying right now. So you got to, if you're an overrepresented applicant, hopefully you're taking the long view, because if you have been a management consultant at Accenture for 3 years and that's all you've done, and you haven't done anything in your community, anything personally, your scores are average, it's going to be tough. There's no magic wand. So if you're applying now, execution is everything. And it's people, you're going to assume that, like, okay, well, that's kind of obvious, but there's a real art to executing on your application, and you have to leave no stone unturned. And this is true of every single overrepresented applicant out there. You have no choice but to really nail every aspect of your application, because there are so many people out there like you who are going to be gunning for those exact same spots. So let's talk about how to execute if you are an overrepresented applicant. Here we go. Section 2, particularly important for overrepresented applicants: thoughtfully crafted, differentiated essays. We're going to go through each one of these. Well-developed, realistic goals. Meaningful connection to your target school. Powerful comparative recommendations. That one is a big one. Clear, coherent resume. Another big one. Okay? So let's take a look. Thoughtfully crafted, differentiated essays. Brainstorm, brainstorm, brainstorm. You can't just start writing. You have to really think to yourself, do a lot of thinking. What is it about me, about my experience that is unique or interesting? Now, unique doesn't mean spectacular. It doesn't mean, you have to be Michael Phelps and have won, I don't know, whatever, 30 Olympic gold medals, whatever you want, over all those Olympics to get into to a top business school. That's not what it's about. It's about finding aspects where maybe you, exercised excellent judgment. Maybe you were particularly thoughtful, creative, where you had your own particular impact on circumstances, on your company, on a product, on something, on someone junior to you, whatever it might be. You don't need to think or embellish a time that says like, okay, look, I did something that you'll never hear of before. That's not what standing out is all about. It's about thinking about your impact positions. Think about the human elements of the story. Like we often have people who try to differentiate on the basis of dollars. It's not that important. The finance guy on the $5 billion merger isn't really as impressive as the individual, or it's that we understand that people in this position are involved with mergers and that dollar values aren't necessarily impacted by the analyst, but the individual who developed this finance 101 curriculum and worked with one of his clients to make sure that he understood the rules of finance, because this individual was, say, an inventor who was selling his company and not a business guy. That's the guy who's showing that he's got a human element to a story. He's got that ethical consciousness. What makes you likable? What shows that you have something to contribute? So really think about those points in your life and your experience where you were able to to stand out and make your impact, and those are the ones that you want to really focus your story around. Then you have to present them appropriately. So you want to avoid what I call over-representing your over-representation. So if you're talking about a group of people who hear a lot about software programming from a certain demographic, think about the difference between the subtleties and the difference between these two lines. Managing a team to code a new software project for ABC Corp. That is introducing the very thing. You don't have to run from it, but you also don't have to throw it in their face and say like, I remember I'm a software engineer. How about while managing a multinational team, half in Silicon Valley and half in Russia, Trying to figure out what's interesting about your story and phrase it in those human circumstances in order to show that you likely are having a different experience. I'm having a international managerial experience as I'm managing my team. It's coding something rather than managing a team to code software, ... Those subtle differences, capturing someone's imagination early. Wow, this guy's an international manager, rather than an incomprehensible, something that's incomprehensible to most people who are reading this in terms of the software world. Coder is really important. So introductions become critical, and introducing what is interesting about you right away in the first sentence of your essays is your best shot at getting someone to keep reading. If you introduce what is overrepresented about you, you could lose them right away. Same thing here. As a Bain consultant, as a consultant at Bain, I love the wide range of companies I gain exposure to. That's true of any consultant. It doesn't matter, that you're at Bain. There are lots of Bain consultants. Brenda was not eager to speak with me, to say the least. I began to contemplate speaking with her supervisor, but I realized I might further alienate her, and gave it one more shot. I mean, I'm not going to write the whole essay for you here, but we're introducing a human element here, where there's a person who's reluctant, fearful, concerned about talking to a consultant, maybe concerned that this person is going to be made redundant, even though that's not quite what consultants do. This individual is introducing human drama as opposed to something that's very common. As a consultant at Bain, I love the wide range of companies. That's not the type of thing that's going to capture someone's imagination. We brought it down to a human level here. Now, I wonder how this person connected with this stubborn, skeptical individual. I was warned about the workload in investment banking, but I truly appreciate Did not truly appreciate what losing a weekend meant until I found myself working on my birthday. Wah, wah. Doesn't matter. I'm sorry. This is not, the people who are reading this, they understand that investment banking is challenging. It's not important to tell them how hard you worked or that you made sacrifices. At 5:30 p.m., I could rest easy. The deadline for all other offers had passed. At that point, I knew that. ... We're in the drama of the closing of a deal. It's far more compelling than the sob story above about how much time someone spent working. So again, it's not that you can't write your way into getting into school, but you can give your best shot you can give yourself your best shot at maintaining someone's interest by figuring out what is not just figuring out the experiences where you were impactful and thoughtful and likable, but then introducing them in a way where the aspects of those stories that are likable, etc., are introduced right away, so that we're not learning about you as typical. Then, having well-developed and realistic goals is crucial. Now, I put this rhetorically here. I was hoping that having not done this, I was hoping I could get you guys to fill in here, but I'll just answer my own questions here. So, why must your goals be real? Well-developed and realistic goals. So, realistic, ambitious goals, but realistic goals. If you're saying, I'm a software programmer and I want to go into the world of hedge funds, then this is not going to be a path that is going to be easy for you to. You're not going to find your way pretty easily. That's a bridge that's very, very hard to build. Hedge fund analysts are PhDs in math. They're they are experienced bankers and private equity guys. They're generally not software engineers. So a school might love you. You might have done a great job of differentiating yourself from the pool and saying, I'm not your typical software engineer. But if they feel like they can't get you from point A to point B, there's no way that you can go where you want to go in your career. They're not going to want you as an applicant because they don't want you to be disappointed with your outcomes. They don't want to have you affect their stats where, hey, we've got another person who didn't find a job right away. And that was measured at Business Week or the Financial Times, whatever, and our graduation employment rates are lower. So you really need to think carefully. You can go back to consulting if you're a consultant, or back to banking if you're a banker. You don't need to create something that's never been heard of before. You just need to show that there's necessity in you getting your education to make you better at that job in the short and long term. So there's no negative bias. They're not saying like, okay, consulting, we don't want to hear about another person going to consulting or banking or whatever, managing software or, the tech space, whatever. There isn't a bias. You need to make your goal yours. You're not going to create a job they've never heard of before. You need to whatever goal you have, just make sure that you create your own compelling case for it. There isn't a bias towards startups or entrepreneurship, but a lot of people are writing about startups and entrepreneurship, and you need to really be able to own it. So if you're a banker and you have no history of working with startups or starting your own firm, it's the wrong thing to talk about. They won't believe you can get there. Looking at these two examples at the bottom here, I was a software engineer, pardon me, should have got some water, but now I want to become a hedge fund analyst versus, I was in healthcare consulting. Now I want to join the medical technology investment banking practice at a leading investment bank. The latter makes a lot of sense. There's a very clear connection. Same thing with your target school. Why must you connect to your target school? Same reason as your goals. If you are able to create a fantastic application, and at the end they sort of feel like, this guy doesn't really know why he wants to be here, doesn't really have any meaningful connection to our school in terms of what he wants to do. Maybe his goals can't be supported by our school. Maybe he wants to go into retail management, and we don't have any retail classes. You have to really be sure that you are connecting with your target program. So here's an example. Columbia is a great school for entrepreneurs, and New York City is an exciting place for me to take professional risks because so many great fortunes have been built there. I really believe the Eugene Lang Center for Entrepreneurship offers the wealth of resources necessary for me to take the next steps as an entrepreneur. This, I don't know if this looks good to you or not. This is kind of the type of thing that can look okay to people. It is not very good. And the reason is because, I'm just going to get a glass of water here. Hold on. Okay, I've got some water. The reason is because this is entirely generic. So this could be, Harvard is a great school for entrepreneurs, and Boston is an exciting place for me to take professional risks because so many great fortunes have been built there. I really believe that the Rock Center for Entrepreneurship, this is totally generic. This is not specific to someone's needs. So you have to get to the point where you are showing that you understand how you're going to engage with a school's resources in order to to facilitate your own goals in a unique way. So as an aspiring entrepreneur in the online education field, I know that flexibility will be critical to my success and that I'll need to constantly challenge my assumptions. For this reason, I'd participate in the entrepreneurial sounding board process by scheduling a session with Russell Sarder, whose experience in online education will no doubt lead to an invaluable critique of my ideas. Thereafter, I would hope to take my refined concept to the Lang Center's incubator. This is, the latter example here is a how-to. It is saying, look, I know where I want to go. I want to move into online education. I know you've got something special in terms of, access to entrepreneurs in this field, to resources that will help me test my ideas. I know why I want to be here. This is not a generic statement. I'm applying with purpose. And so if they feel like you have something to offer the class and that you're sufficiently differentiated from applicants, they're going to say, and he really, really knows why he wants to be here. He gets it. This is a guy who's doing it, or a woman who is doing his homework, and we believe that we can be impactful because he's going to get where he wants to go. Okay. Recommenders. The big mistake a lot of people make with recommenders is they say, here you go, can you write my letter of recommendation? And that's not going to help you. Recommenders are often, when I talk to admissions officers, they say the most overlooked aspect of the application process. People just ask someone to write a letter of recommendation, let them go, and pray for the best. And that is a losing proposition. You're someone who needs every advantage, no stone unturned. You've got to prep your recommenders. That doesn't mean you have to answer quite the questions for them. It doesn't mean that you need to write your own recommendation. In fact, I would say don't write your recommendation and be very prepared to push back on that, because it's hard to write something that's thoughtful and sincere about yourself. It's not helpful. They're not getting the kind of objective information that they want. So, be prepared to push back. If someone says, can you write what you want and just give it to me and I'll sign it, say, I know that you're doing that because you want to give me my best chance of success. But to be honest, my best chance of success is if you write a thoughtful letter of recommendation. I'm prepared to meet with you, talk about my accomplishments, refresh your memory of my major achievements with you as my boss. I'm willing to bullet point those ideas, put them in a cheat sheet for you so you can reference them. I want to make your life easy, but I also, I need you to write thoughtfully for me to succeed. Relative comparisons backed up with examples, that's super important. And you have to talk about that with your recommender. You have to say, look, you're not here to cheerlead. Bob is an awesome individual. We've been so profoundly pleased with his performance that we're almost reluctant to recommend him. Our group will not be the same. He's a rare find. You'll love having him in your class. Not helpful at all. They don't have any sense. It's just bluster. It's like, you're great, you're awesome, you're wonderful. Doesn't mean anything. I supervised Bob for 3 years, and in each one he was ranked in our highest tier, top 2% among his peer group. Bob stood out for a variety of reasons, first among which was his client focus. And here, example of client focus. I remember, I'm just making it up, but I remember we were at risk of losing our client, and we did an assessment of why some of our client base was eroding. Bob immediately took that assessment and tried, the exact, whatever it was, implemented our new strategy with a long view towards the client's growth. Doesn't matter. It's got to be very, very detailed in order for them to understand with strong examples why you're part of that 2%. They don't care that you are part of that 2%. They care why. They care that that's a reasonable representation of you. Okay, so meet with your recommenders, talk to them, make sure that they understand what their job is. And then here we're getting to the end, and I know we're a tiny bit over time, and I want to leave lots of time for questions, not much more. Have a clear and coherent resume. And this is something that an admissions officer recently in a chat with us said the most overlooked. It's on our website. You can check it out. It's a chat with Sujin Ko from Michigan. She said that she feels that resumes are actually the most overlooked, that people just kind of send in their resume that's been cobbled together over years and don't take time to update it and think about it carefully and critically evaluate it. Your resume is a map. It's not an encyclopedia. If you've read resumes, you probably know that you just go through them very, very quickly. If something is cluttered, you get frustrated, you don't have time for it, you discard it. You want to get something that's developed, something that's scannable, or less is more. You want to have something that is very much short and accomplishment driven. Each position might have, each current position, like close to current position, might have 5 bullet points. Old positions 5-6 years ago, 2, 1 bullet point even. You're not here to tell your biography. It's a resume. It's a map. It's not an encyclopedia. So don't offer everything. And then make sure that it's plain English. There's no jargon. I made up this jargon. I don't even know if it's accurate for jargon, but manage the addition of components for our HD at 3840 times 2160 product, enabling 4G wireless connect. No one is going to even understand what that means. Delivered 2 new features ahead of schedule for our firm's flagship project, facilitating 26% revenue growth. Okay, that's a perfect bullet point. Short, action, what did I do? I delivered 2 new features, result, 26% revenue growth. That's a perfect bullet point. People often say, responsible for delivering 2 new features. That doesn't mean anything. You're responsible, you might have done it horribly, but you've got to stay away. You got to show the results that show that you've done it well, but you've got to stay away from the jargon, in any field. Not just this technical speak, which is the easiest way to show jargon, admittedly. So that is really kind of it. I think I'm a little over time. Multidimensional applicants who execute well get in. Okay, single dimension applicants who execute don't get in. If you're multidimensional and you execute well, you defy the overrepresented label, and that's the big. It's not such a secret, but it's important that you understand that as you plot your course going forward. Very, very briefly, we are the only mbaMission consulting firm out there with full-time consultants. This is what we do. This is a professional calling, not a hobby. I keep talking about, I keep randomly using Deloitte. Imagine if there are, 50,000 people worldwide suddenly became 250,000 because they hired part-time workers. How good a firm would they be? So we're a little bit different. We actually have we're the highest rated firm on GMAT Club. I think over 250 verified reviews now. Those are verified reviews. GMAT Club goes and makes sure that their clients, make sure they've paid for services. And we're the only admissions consulting firm recommended by Manhattan Prep and by Kaplan, the 2 largest GMAT companies in the world. And I think we do something very different in that we are a real team. We have our own annual conference. There's an industry conference where everyone from the industry gets together because there are small firms out there where they, 2 or 3 people, whatever it is. We have a firm where we can invest in hiring, training, ongoing. We have our own 3-day conference every year. We have meetings on a regular basis as a firm. This is a knowledge sharing organization where the consultants are professionals. They know each other. Almost think of it like the way you'd have a lawyer, a litigator. You wouldn't want a part-time litigator who takes on a client or 2 after work. You'd want, after his other job, you'd want a full-time lawyer on your side defending you in court. Hopefully you're not going to court. So that's us. There are a whole bunch of opportunities to try us. Our insider's guides to 16 schools are available for free. Go check out our resources. We've got a variety of resources that are free. And we always do a free 30-minute consultation with any, you can choose your consultant. Just go to our website. I won't go through our services. Here are a few members of our team. Me, Katie Lewis, Harvard Business School, Harvard Law School, McKinsey, former Stanford admissions reader, Monica Carpenter-Okra, Harvard Business School, 65 successful Harvard Business School application essays. She wrote a book on effective essays for Harvard Business School. This is the type of individual you'll be working with in our team. This is a partial list of our team. We have a variety of other firms you can see at the bottom. I'll leave you to check that out, but we also do career coaching, law school consulting, and financial aid advisory. We're a very comprehensive firm. We're doing this at a very different level. Again, go to our website, mbaMission.com, and you can get your free consultation. Go to our blog. We have free guides, amazing, amazing free resources for you to engage with. And with that, I guess I will move back to the, I'll stop sharing and I'll move back to the camera and I'll turn it on. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Just reading the questions as they come. How does overrepresentation in short-term, long-term goals affect admission decisions? Like I was saying, it's not like, if you're a consultant and you want to go back to consulting, it's not like the school's going to say, no, we don't want any consultants who want to go back to consulting. They're going to say, why? We know you're going to be effective in that role. Is this something you really want to do? Is there a vision for where you're going to be, where you're going with this career? Is this a vision? Is there a vision for why you need your MBA to get there? So I think that's pretty critical for you, for any applicant, but especially for someone who's overrepresented. Is there a benefit of having clarity and goals for schools which don't ask for them? Yes, you want to always have clarity. Hopefully you have it for yourself. You're someone who, you're spending a lot of money on your school. You don't want to be spending all that money. It's $50,000, it's more than that, $55,000, $60,000 for tuition in some schools. Spend all that money and then, for what? So you as an educated consumer should have clarity of goals. If the school's not asking for those goals, you don't have to tell them, like Harvard Business School with their essay says, give us additional information. If your goals are really, really relevant, fine. Talk about your goals. Like you really own them, and they're yours, and you really feel like you can stand up and get your goals. Okay. If they're not, then don't worry about it. I'd say 95% of our Harvard applicants don't even talk about their goals. Just give a picture of who they are. So don't force an answer in if they're not asking it. You might have an opportunity in your interview. Obviously, in your short answer questions, they always ask questions about your goals and your experience. So there will be a place for it, but I wouldn't force it in somewhere. Is there a benefit of unclear? Okay, sorry. How does a recommender differentiate you in the overrepresented scene? It's something they differentiate you. It's that they're going to speak about you powerfully. Like, yes, they can differentiate you by giving, by saying you're the elite in your field and backing it up clearly, hopefully with rankings, but not every school not every firm ranks people. Sorry, where am I? Sorry, it just popped down. I'm sorry, I want to make sure. Recommend or differentiate you. Yeah. They can differentiate you by talking about the same human skills and the same, the ways in which you've acquitted yourself, so that, if you differentiate yourself by being client ready faster than your peers, that's great. Just why, how, what gave them the confidence? Typically, we make our vice presidents a point of contact, but in this case, we were happy to make our associate a point of contact because Jeremy was so knowledgeable in the niche field of, mining. We were talking about natural resources banking. I'm just making it up. Whatever it is, you want to be able to back it up, and that's the point. That's why you have to prep your recommenders. They need to get to the point where they can really be speaking about you with details and with examples to back up the boasts that they're making, but they're not boasts because they're credible. For a GMAT of 720, would you consider a retake in the overrepresented pool? I would only consider a retake if you think you can do better. If you've got a 740 that you've been practicing frequently and you think you can do a lot better, then I would say take it again. If you have taken it a few times, you've got a 720, there's no point. I mean, you're just wasting your time. So you have to think to yourself like, hey, can I do better, and how much time will it take me to do better? And if it's a pragmatic choice for you, and you think you can do better, and you're overrepresented, I do think every point counts. It's not like a 720 suddenly gets in with a 730, but every point counts. So assuming you feel like if you're in a hyper competitive pool, the GMAT will matter for you and you can do better, take the GMAT again. How do you prep recommenders who do not have the time to make your accomplishments more granular? I'm not sure what that really means. I mean, I would just say that person might not be the right individual to write your recommendation for you. If this person is saying, look, I don't have time to be thoughtful, that's probably a sign. You probably should go pick someone else. It's as simple as that. Does the overrepresented pool have its toll on any toll? Does the overrepresentative, I'm going to read this carefully because it's a little bit cumbersomely worded. During on-campus job search in the US. I think what you're saying is if you're from an overrepresented group, can it affect your job search? I mean, not during good times like now. I mean, like right now, you've got, top consulting firms, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, they can't find enough people. There's a talent war in Silicon Valley. There's a talent war between Silicon Valley and Wall Street. If you are a skilled, capable person, then you're really just competing against yourself in the job search at this point. You're not competing against others. How was your HBS performance this year? Any modern trends and advice for round 2? So, I mean, the idea of our performance for HBS it's an interesting one. I think there are probably a lot of consulting firms out there who try to say like, oh, okay, we've got this percentage of applicants get in or something like that. That's not really our thing. It's kind of silly because it depends on the quality of the applicant coming in, not on the consultant. Like I couldn't sit here and say to you, a consultant can get any single individual in, and it's up to the consultant, right? It's you you have experiences. We help you shape those experiences. So if I said to you, 10% of our applicants got in, you might say, oh, that's terrible. What if I said, yeah, but we only worked with really hard luck applicants for whatever reason this round. And, we didn't think that many of them were that good, to be honest. We really helped them. Or if we said 98% got in, would that mean we just turned away hard luck applicants? We turned away people with tough GMATs. We only worked with people who didn't need our help. So a number is just it's not helpful to you. It might be persuasive to someone who is not in the know, but the number doesn't reveal the quality of the applicant going in, which is what's important. I don't think there's anything that particular that is different. Like, let's say hypothetically, I said, yeah, there's a trend towards, there's a trend towards, females in biotech are getting in like crazy this year. You can't become that, so it doesn't matter. You have your opportunity to reveal who you are to the admissions committee, to tell them your story and to hopefully differentiate along the lines of your story. Well, you did talk about the GMAT not being the only deciding factor. Can you quantify how many points a higher score than the average applicant would be typically needed for an overrepresented applicant? Again, like we're kind of back to reducing people to, like, what if I said to you, okay, 750, that's what you need if you're overrepresented. It belies all the other things. If someone was a investment banker who was our rugby coach and was running diversity initiatives at his firm and was particularly client focused, then that individual to get into a top school, I don't think would need a 750. I obviously would need more color around who this person is, but it just depends. I think you can hope, and furthermore, even if I did say you're 750, it doesn't mean you can go out and get one. So I think do your best. Hopefully you're above average, but the nature of an average is such that not everyone is above average. Some people are above average and some people are below average. So you can only go out there and do your best, and then you can choose to apply or not to apply. And if you're well under the average, there's not that much that's special about you. Maybe the writing's on the wall. If you're a little under the average and there's something that's really special about you, I would suggest that you go for it. If you're way above the average and there's not that much that's interesting about you, I'd be prepared for a hard slog. It depends on who you are, not on your score. You said that we make the essays interesting from the first line. Is it required to keep all essays to follow a common theme, or do we compensate on the theme by going and making everything interesting? Well, I mean, everything should be made interesting, period. I mean, you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to give up on making this interesting. You definitely, if you're creating all your essays along one common theme, I think that you are going to come across as quite boring. So, or you're going to be forcing a theme that doesn't fit. So I'm Jeremy, I'm an entrepreneur. I started my own company, okay? If I talk about entrepreneurship in every single essay, they're going to say, well, this guy had other dimensions, you know, and we don't know about them. If I was a, diplomat in navigating a difficult dynamic at my nonprofit, I'm, involved in a nonprofit. Maybe I diplomatically manage a challenging board discussion, and that is a moment where I shined. Why should I try and tell them I'm an entrepreneur on this board? Why shouldn't I say, look, I've got skills as an entrepreneur, and hey, I've got skills as a diplomat, and I'm a multi-talented individual, and you should be excited to have a multi-talented individual at your firm, at your school. Think about your, Warren Buffett, your Bill Gates. These are guys that, the schools are hoping you're going to be the next one of them, and they're going to be able to say, hey, we at Duke or Wharton or Tuck or whatever top school you're talking about, we were smart enough to accept this Jeremy guy, and he's going places. He's going to be the next big thing in business. In 10 years, you'll hear from him. Okay? That's what they want to say. And Warren Buffett is not a one-dimensional guy. He's funny. He's honest. He's charitable. He's analytical. He's got foresight and vision. Bill Gates is a entrepreneur extraordinaire. He's a social entrepreneur extraordinaire. He's a great bridge player. He's a family man. Human beings aren't single characteristics. So I would avoid trying to create one characteristic. Many software guys end up going to big consulting post-MBA. Why is that considered an unrealistic goal, especially because most consulting companies don't care about your background? I'm not sure that I said that. I don't think I said that at all. So many software guys end up going to big consulting post-MBA. I don't think I said, if I said that that's an unrealistic goal, then that's an error. I don't recall saying that, but big consulting is probably, I think as you just noted, don't care about your background. Absolutely. Big consulting is they're just looking for true analytical powerhouses and certain personality traits in order to, and staff their ranks. They'll do the training themselves, and they're quite happy about that. So if you have a software background, that's great. I think I said something about hedge funds, which is a pretty tough transition to make. But consulting is pretty much open to anyone. FYI, on Monday, we have McKinsey doing an event with us at mbaMission. Associates will be talking about the post-MBA associate position at McKinsey. And it'll give you a real window into what they do. And you can feel free to sign up on our website in order to attend that event with us. And while I'm reminding myself of things, I should remind you also the GMAT Club is running a giveaway where you can win free GMAT Club tests. To enter the competition, all you need to do is like this video, post a comment below, and check the link in the description. So I did my job, GMAT Club, and I'm doing my job for our McKinsey event on Monday. I think it's probably a good idea if you're interested in consulting to attend. That way you can have a leg up on the competition in terms of knowledge, go to campus educated before you get there, so that you can be an advanced networker and have thoughtful stories to tell that connect to that field when you're interviewing and when you're writing your cover letter, etc. Okay, any other questions here? Okay, it doesn't look like that many other questions. We can always end early. Oh, there's one right there. And again, I don't know if I can type this in here and you guys can see it. Oh, I don't think anyone can, but again, if you have your own specific questions, you can go to our website, mbaMission.com/consult, and you can get a free half hour with us. So if there's something you don't want to ask publicly, feel free to ask it privately with your half hour with one of our consultants. If I have 1 year of IT experience and 2.5 years of pre-sales consulting experience, post that, should I talk about the IT experience or just focus on the consulting? Talk about that which is interesting and that which is personal. Like, it doesn't matter. That's what I was saying before about like, hey, I could talk about consulting, or I could talk about how I managed a team, half in Finland, half in Russia, whatever it was, half in Silicon Valley, half in Russia. That is, that's an interesting, potentially interesting bicultural experience. It's not about consulting, it's about management at that point. So really think about, what you want to say, what your interesting experiences are. You don't necessarily have to put it down in terms of like consulting terms or technology terms. You provide a highlight of the rankings for different schools below top 10 programs. Do you recommend anyone for the same? I'm not sure what you're asking about for the same. We generally look at the schools in terms of their elite status is kind of like Harvard and Stanford is a cut above the most competitive schools. Thereafter, we see Wharton, Chicago, Kellogg, MIT, Columbia kind of being in the mix with Wharton at the top of that list, usually, sometimes Columbia. And then thereafter, schools like Haas, Tuck, Darden, Duke, NYU, Cornell, Michigan, UCLA, generally following that, kind of rounding out the top 10 because there's more than them, often with Haas, Yale at the top, Duke, Darden, and then at the bottom somewhere, there I'd say, whoops, oh no, I lost, just lose you guys by accident. Oh no. Let me go back to my screen here. Okay. Sorry, and then after that, I would say at the bottom, usually UCLA, Cornell at the bottom of that group. After that, I would say, schools like Georgetown, Emory, UNC, Texas. Those are schools I think are sort of the next tier. Kelly at Indiana, USC. And then after that, I really wouldn't even differentiate. I might have forgotten one or something like that, but that's it. And then internationally, here's the question: internationally, INSEAD, LBS, equivalent to top 10 or rank. It depends who you ask. I mean, they're generally considered to be very good schools. I think people would probably put them in that like next second tier, along with Chicago, Wharton, Kellogg. They're good schools. I think they're schools that where their reputation may be a little outsized, but they're generally good schools. Then after that, I think there are schools like ESA, Asade, Rotman, Ivy, which are probably like the bottom part of that, like UCLA, Cornell, at least in terms of their prestige. Prestige isn't everything. There are lots of great programs out there. If you want to go to hedge funds and you've got reason to go there, Cornell is actually a great school. They've got amazing asset management resources. So does Texas, actually. So Texas is like a $16 million student-run investment fund. I mean, that's a pretty amazing opportunity. So, it depends on what your specific need is. I'm kind of speaking in generalities at this point. Next time I'm going to do this with a glass of water beside me. Okay, I don't know if the moderator can see anyone typing or has any more questions. But if you don't, I'm happy to sign off, I guess. Oh, no, we hear a bunch. Okay, significant community work, how do I portray it? Specifically with questions that ask for examples with details. Where do you tend to answer using work examples? Do I just add them in my resume? I think this is, kind of runs parallel to the question someone asked about, do I present myself in one way? I mean, you got to keep the reader learning with every essay opportunity. Or even if there only is one essay, often it's one long essay where you can reveal different dimensions of yourself, and most people will take advantage of that. Occasionally you have someone who has one very powerful story, but most people will thread a bunch of different stories from different areas. There's an opportunity in your essays. Your community work can show up in your resume, leaving a section for truly profound community experience. It can come up in your recommendations potentially if someone is truly, truly knowledgeable. You don't ask someone at JP Morgan to talk about your community work unless you've done something this individual is very much aware of, likely through JP Morgan. If you're on the analyst morale committee at JP Morgan, then that individual can talk about it. If you're coaching soccer outside of school, outside of work, it would seem implausible that person would know anything about it. Your recommenders aren't your biographers, so don't have them write about things they wouldn't know. After that, I would say, your interviews also can be a great place to talk about your volunteer experience, and then also, the applications themselves. There are questions about, tell us about your extracurricular activities, etc. So those are the places that I think would be where you can, discuss your community work. Okay, I think that's it for the questions. And it looks like we're right at time. So you guys kept me working to the bell, which is important. Again, let me throw out a thank you to GMAT Club for doing this. GMAT Club is, again, running a giveaway where you can win free GMAT Club tests to enter the competition. All you need to do is like this video, post a comment below, and check the link in the description. And take us up on our free event with McKinsey on Monday. Take us up on a free consultation. And go to our resources section on our website, and our guide section on our website. We have so many free resources. We made them all free as of late. People used to pay a lot of money for them. They're all free, so check them out. I think they're really, really helpful as you try to personalize your applications to particular schools. And with that, I am signing off.